In our journey, we are hosting the seventh webinar, and the distinguished guest for today is Mr. Ninad Karpe. Mr. Ninad Karpe has agreed to speak in this webinar, and it is our good fortune that we are going to talk about the startups today. And the topic is startups from ideation to scaling. In this talk, we will spend roughly about 30 minutes listening to Mr. Ninad Karpe, and the remaining 30 minutes, we will hear the views of Mr. Ninad Karpe on the questions raised by the audience at the time of registration as well as during the course of the talk. So all the questions will be put together and it will be moderated by Professor R. Prasad and I in the remaining 30 minutes. It's actually up to 7:30. It's not 7:15. Next, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Mr. Ninad Karpe. Mr. Ninad Karpe is very popular. He is a venture capitalist and partner at 100x at this moment. And formerly, he was the MD CEO of the AppTech and also the managing director of Computer Associates in India. Mr. Ninad Karpe has become extremely popular during his shows recently, during his book launches. His famous book, Baba to Bond, is very popular, and it has also given me an opportunity of meeting Mr. Ninad Karpe in Pune and Mumbai on the occasion of his book launches and during the business literature festivals that were conducted recently. I mean, pre-COVID era. I had an opportunity of meeting him and collecting the books that he has authored. Today, we are extremely happy that Mr. Ninad Karpe has agreed to speak in our webinar. And without much ado, I now request Mr. Ninad to start the session. Over to you, Mr. Ninad. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Rao. Thank you, professors, Murthy, all other professors on this Zoom call, students, professionals. I hope, Professor Rao, you can hear me clearly. I just want to check.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So this is a topic which is presently eternally favorite. And people want to know more about it. People want to understand more about it. And people are very curious. So all three put together. And why not? In this first 5 months, we have had 14 unicorns announced in India. We have total before that of 35 unicorns. And this year, probably, if already 14 are done, we probably might add 30, 32 unicorns this year itself. And that would be a record number. What is happening? Is there something which you don't know about? Is there a mega trend which is happening below your feet and you're unaware of? I will try and speak for just 20-25 minutes. I'm cognizant of it being 6:35 or so. I'll speak till around 7 and then take questions. I'll speak on a gamut of topics on how to scale, what do VCs look for investment, and hopefully that will trigger some bit of curiosity in you, some bit of, and I hope I have some answers to your questions and you leave this session not with more questions, but with a few answers. With that, I'm going to try and share my screen. Professor Rao, I hope I have my right.
Yes, you can.
So here I am. I just thought I'll put some presentation just to grab your eyeballs on some points, and I'm open to questions later on. I'm going to speak on ideation to scaling. It's a big topic. I'm going to touch upon it, just throw some ideas at you. And of course, at the end of it, we can have some questions as well. So a lot of people tell me, and this is a standard question, I've been an entrepreneur for so long. Why am I not getting valuation? Why am I not getting funded? What is the difference between me as an entrepreneur and a startup? Simple words, startup is a company designed to scale rapidly. If you're not scaling rapidly, if you're just running a business, there's nothing wrong in being an entrepreneur and not being a startup. Entrepreneurship is good, but if you're an entrepreneur, you're doing a business for what we call a lifestyle business. Basically, running a business for you, your family, to pass it on to your kids. You're not running a business which is meant to be funded. You're not taking risks which are required to be taken when you want to scale rapidly. Startup is a business which has a DNA of scaling rapidly. That's a big difference. And I'm going to show a short video of this gentleman, Mark Levin. In 2011, he and his friend thought of starting a very simple, solving a very simple problem. They said every 15 days, every month, we require razor blades. And why do you have to keep buying them every time? They're so confused with the whole range of razor blades. Is it possible? Is there a service possible which can give razor blades regularly to me, delivered on a particular day, day after day, month after month? Have a look at his video. This video broke the internet in 2011 when it was launched. He started as a startup, he and his co-founder. 2016, he was bought over for $1 billion cash. What was the problem he's trying to solve? Regular supply of good razor blades.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, pop up. Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro, now, right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
So there's Dollar Shave Club, simple problem solved, became a $1 billion company, sold for $1 billion cash within a matter of 5 years. That's a startup. Scalable business, subscription model, absolutely brilliant. So if you're, when startup founders come to us, we ask them three very simple questions. What is your mission? What is the value proposition? And is your elevator pitch ready? Very, very clear. If these 3 ideas are clear in the mind, it is easy to then discuss forward. And for startups have to map the overall market size. It might sound easy, but in some cases, not very easy to find the total market size, addressable opportunity of within that market size, and the positioning. The positioning of the product also has to be very clear. Are you positioning at millennials? Are you positioning at tier 2, tier 3 cities? Are you positioning for South Bombay, South Delhi? What is your positioning? People sometimes, startups are obsessed with trying to do something where there's no competition. It is not easy unless you built an IP or a tech product which is totally unique. And VCs do not mind funding startups which are number 2, number 3 in the space, or even number 4, as long as you're doing something new, a moat. What is the moat? Is it a better process? Is it a direct connect to the customers? Is it a logistics improvement, better customer service, customer satisfaction? There has to be some moat. If you have IP built on some technology, obviously it's the best moat. And what is the entry barrier disruption? Are you disrupting the entire ecosystem? Is there some entry barriers for others to come and join? And are you better than there could be an existing player? So Mark Levin did this, sending razor blades. There are so many razor blade people in the market, but he did something which was very good. Execution, month after month, delivering good quality razor blades, and on a subscription basis. So you pay for a particular period of time, and every periodic interval you get delivered at your home. And what is your go-to-market? So there is a new go-to-market strategy of addressing consumers living in large gated communities. Vendors come to the gates, aggregate the orders, and pay. So go-to-market keeps changing, and I'll talk more about it much little later in the presentation. Of course, as a startup founder, life is a pitch. Startup founders need to pitch all the time. They have to pitch to their partners, to their parents, to their neighbors. And this is Papa CJ. He is a award-winning comedian. See what he says.
You have to be a solid person that are hardworking. The one thing I would say is, we've seen a lot of startup founders are not very good storytellers. I've been at events where they're pitching to VCs.
To me, the volume is low, sir.
Tell their story. And they are unable to clearly articulate their story. And as a comedian, I'm thinking, what is wrong with you? I can help you do this. Why are you not being succinct? You know, this is the problem that exists. This is how I'm solving it. This is the size of the problem. This is who I am. That's it. Yes. I mean, what else do you want to hear? Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So that was Papa CJ. He is a famous comedian, and he is also telling you how to pitch. It's a very important part of a startup founder's story. It's not just important to have a good product, a good offering, but how to position it, how to pitch is very, very critical. This is a real life example of a founder who had come to meet me, and there was a girl and a boy, and both of them started with this first statement, which is on the right. I want to solve all the problems of the world through technology. It's great. Who doesn't want to do it? So in my mind, I'm thinking, so what? Then they say, I want to ensure that I want to save this planet for my next generation. Again, I'm thinking, so what? You have come to pitch to a VC as a startup founder, and there are in our minds 3 so whats. If by the third so what you're not able to tell a coherent story, you have lost the attention of the VC. Fortunately, in the third so what, they mentioned, I want to build a palm-sized solar panel which will have functionality of a large panel. Fortunately, at the end of it, I got it, but I had to wait for 3 questions in my mind to figure out what they're trying to do. So this kind of a thing, founders need to be cognizant of how to pitch. And when you're, what do VCs look for in a startup? They look for founding team. What is the pedigree? They look to fund large market size opportunity. What is the business model strength? And do you have some unfair advantage or moat? And of course, VCs are in this game to earn a minimum of 20x return. They wait for 7 years, 5 years. And this is something which you have to be very clear about. What is your pricing? How will you scale? How much growth capital you require? And what is the end game? These are some of the parameters. I'll rush through this because I'll then focus more on the scaling part. These are some of the parameters which are critical for when you go for fundraising. Let me move quickly. Yeah, now this is something I wanted to focus on given the topic. We are now living in a brave new world. It has changed forever. Look at what we are doing today. Didn't happen a year back. A lot of things have changed. Technology is now mainstream for everything, from education to retail to all fields. People who are not embracing technology have no choice. Work from home is a reality. I hope all of you are safe and well, but once COVID is behind us, and hopefully is behind us very soon, we will have a hybrid model. I'm sure we will not go back to the old model of a lot of travel and moving around in cities. And there are certain huge lifestyle changes. The biggest change is that massive consumption at home. Today, if you have a product or a service, it's so easy to find the consumer. Most of the consumers are sitting at home, they're consuming at home. So all these changes are made, rapid changes are happening. And how do you capture these changes? Obviously, online channels are important. B2H is a new model. India has a propensity always to discover new models. When e-commerce became very popular and still popular, we discovered a model called cash on delivery. No, in the world there was so much cash on delivery. India
झूम
had.
डाउनलोड करा तो झूम वगैरह गूगल मीट वगैरह.
Can you mute, please? Yeah, whoever is talking. So B2H is business to home, where vendors come to large gated communities and supply goods at home. This is a model which is here for good. It is not a temporary model. It will continue. More importantly, now direct to consumer is becoming a great model. Earlier, you always depended on distributors, channels. Owning your consumer is becoming a massive, massive marketing strategy. All producers, all people who are marketing goods want to own the consumer, from acquiring, fulfillment, to then trying to sell some other products. They no longer want to merely rely on channels to fulfill the needs of the consumer. Owning a consumer is becoming a big thing. And subscription model, I gave the example of Dollar Shave Club, but in India, we have not seen a massive company being massively successful in a subscription model. It is a model waiting to succeed. Subscription model is great. It ensures that you get regularity of income. The consumer is happy that at regular intervals, you don't have to keep shopping again and again. It is something, Indian model of subscription is waiting to be explored, waiting to be marketed. It is something which will happen and will happen very soon. Look at this small video on Casper. I'll tell you after you've seen the video.
We ask these creatures of comfort what it's like to sleep on a Casper. Some things just don't need words.
So Casper founders figured that when you shift into a new home, this is meant in the US market, there's a big problem of selecting a mattress. There's so many varieties of mattress, it's a nightmare. They said, we will send mattress in a box. The world's best mattress in a box. You don't need to go through the horrifying experience, a harrowing experience of going and selecting. They became $1 billion company within no time. What was the value proposition? The best mattress in a box delivered to you at home. What I'm trying to tell you is you don't have to have solved massive problems to become a massively successful startup. Simple problems solved in an innovative manner can also make you hugely successful. So how do you get going? Just start, look outside the window. You'll see tons of problems waiting there to be solved. Select one problem and just get going. Remember, a journey of startup is a journey of wealth, not income. It takes time. It takes years. Ideally, you should have a co-founder. A single founder is not necessarily the best to get funded. Tech co-founder always helps. Also, today, stars are aligned for startup founders. There are VCs, there are incubators, government policies, all aligned to ensure that you as a startup founder succeed. Getting funded is not success. A lot of people just get the initial round of funding and they think they have succeeded. Rapid scale is very critical. This is one aspect which we have to learn from some countries outside India. Of course, in a B2B SaaS kind of solutions, scale can happen rapidly. But if you have a consumer product, how do you scale rapidly? Subscription model is one part of it. Having a direct connect to the consumer is becoming more and more critical, not just because of having intimate connection with the consumer, but also trying to sell more and more to the consumer. So subscription model, owning the consumer and talking directly to the consumer is also becoming very critical. You cannot have a startup which is a lifestyle business which keeps growing gently at 10% year on year. It is not, then it's no longer a startup. It's what we call a lifestyle business. And of course, being frugal does help a lot. Are you looking at being an entrepreneur with a sustainable business, or are you looking at scale? Scale is critical. Ideally, in an ideal situation, it does not necessarily happen all the time, because let's say if you have a manufacturing product, It's not necessarily asset light, but asset light product is good because then you can have with a small amount of, not small, relatively small amount of capital investment, you can leverage the business at a much higher scale. Low human touch is very critical. Can you use bots? Can you use technology? Can you automate the order fulfillment process? What is it that you can automate? Don't, if you keep throwing more people for growth, when you are, let's say, 10 crores turnover and you have 100 people, when you are 20 crores, you are 200, when you're 30 crores, you are 300. That's not the model which is a correct model for growth. It has to have as low human touch as possible. Which aspects of your customer journey you can automate and use technology. Exponential growth. Think beyond. What is it that, think of a product or service. Are you making a 8-grain bread only for consumers in Banjara Hills? It's not a startup. It's a business. No one. It is definitely a business, and it could be a good business, but it's not a business which will scale to a huge extent. You have to look at a large market size and figure out how to keep growing. Initial stages, if you're not growing at 30, 40, 50% month on month, if not week on week, it doesn't work out. So look at exponential growth. Look at how to reach more consumers. There's so many new channels happening. If you're using only WhatsApp, LinkedIn, now you have new channel called Discord. You have Telegram. You have so many new things happening. You have to use all these digital channels to market your products and goods. All of them help in having an exponential growth. Do you do India or a global product? Of course, if it's a tech product, normally global market is critical. But yes, ideally you should consolidate yourself in one market before looking at other geographies. But yes, if you can think of a product which has global appeal, nothing like it. You have to think scale. Don't think of a good business which I'll run profitably. That is not a startup business. Use all this: asset light, low human touch, exponential growth, subscription model, owning your customer, D2C. All these things can help in building a scalable such model. This is a founder of a company called Under Armour. He was a fullback at University of Maryland, and he realized that after each American football game, not soccer, he has to carry 8 or 10 undershirts and shirts because they get soaked with perspiration. And he said, is there a solution to this problem? Can I have a solution whereby only one t-shirt, undershirt can take care of it? And he invented a undershirt which could absorb all the shirt, whereby you don't have to carry so many undershirts. He gave it to his teammates. They loved it. And today, Under Armour is a $6 billion company. You can have a look on their website. It's a massive company.
There's a fog out there. And it's calling you by name. It wants to wrap its whole self around you. Make you forget who you are. Make you forget the work. But you won't forget. Got to find your way through the unknown. There's only one way.
Solving a problem of sweaty undershirts, he's built a $6 billion company. This is a third example. First one I gave about a Dollar Shave Club, razor blades, subscription model sent regularly. Second was mattress in a box. Third was sweaty undershirts. All three very simple problems, billions of dollars of business. And finally, let me end by saying that today the world has changed dramatically. Ideas are not chasing capital. Capital is chasing ideas. So if you have a business model, get going. If you have an idea, nurture it. Ideas are fragile. discuss with your mentors, discuss with your friends, ensure that from idea you get to an ideation stage. And that ideation stage can take time. You can, maybe you just want to solve a small problem, which can become a big revenue opportunity. After that, build an MVP product, a small product, make a test pilot. You can go to VCs. VCs are today funding at the initial stage also. At a pre-seed level, they fund concept ideas, they fund pre-seed, pre-revenue ideas. We fund it at 100x. After that, think of scale. Don't just think of doing a business for yourself and your family. That's not a startup. Use all these various models which I have narrated in my presentation. Think of massive scale. It is possible. Do a subscription model. Do a model of owning your customer. Do all these things which I mentioned. You can get scale, and then finally look at the global markets. You will succeed, because at each stage when you require capital, capital will chase good ideas. So those are a few thoughts. It's 7 o'clock, and I thought I must stop so that I give you chance to ask me questions. It's a massive topic, but I just thought I'll cover some aspects of this whole concept of ideation to scaling up of startups. It's an exciting opportunity. If you have a thought, don't wait, get going. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It's a brilliant show. I think I have enjoyed it because it's a quick foundational course on startups. As much as that, it started with ideas and very quickly it has moved on to the pitch. It has touched upon the vainglory of buzzwords, which is to be avoided, and the tweaking of the business models, owning the customer and scaling up, use of technology and not dumping too much of human power over there, and having multiple founders or at least one co-founder as some of the benchmarks or some of the guiding lights for the startups at this stage. Thank you very much, sir. And what is more interesting is going to be the next part of the session, that is the lots of questions that we have received from the audience, which we have compiled and put into different clusters. I will now call upon Professor R. Prasad, my colleague. Professor R. Prasad is having 3 decades of experience. He is an alumnus of IIT Mumbai and IIM Kolkata. He is the architect of this online MBA program. This online MBA program he has very carefully crafted and built. He acts as a professor and course mentor for the program. And today he is going to raise several questions that are asked by the audience. And I said he is having 3 decades of experience. This is a message Professor R. Prasad has sent me yesterday or day before. And he said, I quote, "Today was when I joined my first job at Godrej at Vikhroli, Mumbai 30 years back on 3rd of June. That was yesterday. The job was to sell electronic typewriters. This product category is no longer in the market. The birth, growth, demise of products and organizations has kept me on my toes always. I thank God for that. That is how life is also." I really like this one, and it's very inspiring. Professor R. Prasad has been my valued colleague. His entrepreneurial and intrapreneurial zeal that he brought to the table at work in his long journey with ICFAI also is something which I have observed from close quarters. So I'm personally and professionally proud of his journey, and that's why I thought I'll share his quote. Without his permission, I did that. But congratulations, Professor Prasad, on the journey of 3 decades of your work. I welcome you to initiate the moderation with the guest today. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sudhakar, for the very kind words. And thank you, sir, Mr. Ninad Karpe, for such a brilliant introduction. In fact, the centrality of what is the difference between a startup and a business is very, very clear. There's no dispute on that. And I think, the path ahead also has been laid out very, very sharply. We have, one of the largest subscriptions today in terms of our webinars. There are more than 270 people who have registered. And there are, at least 60 to 70% of them who have asked questions. So what we have tried to do is we have tried to cluster this
Sure.
and sequence it, and try to see where we can get more value for our for those who want to attend the webinar. So these clusters will be shared between Professor Sudhakar and me. So I'll start with the one on the startups. The very first question that we coined in this, many people say they are with startups. What is a startup? I think you've answered that already, sir. So I'll move to the very next question. What are the right motivations for a startup? There are people who lose a lucrative job abroad or in India, not happy with bosses. When should someone think about a startup?
Thank you, Professor Prasad. It's my honor to be with you on the same channel and the same screen now. I can't say platform, but yes,
Thank you, sir.
same screen, not stage, but it's an honor to be. Yes, when, see, a startup I mentioned in my presentation is not a journey of income, it's a journey of wealth. So you have to be prepared for that journey of wealth. It takes time. It may not happen also at the end of it, but it is not a journey of income. When, anytime, obviously today the younger people are getting more funding because they're more tech savvy, but doesn't mean that you won't get funding at any age. You can start a startup at any point of time. You have to be ready. Two things you have to be ready for. Number one, a journey of wealth, not a journey of income. So your income you have to forget. You will not be able to get the same level of income. But more importantly, you have to chase a dream. That dream has to be permanent in the mind. Day and night, what am I doing? Am I changing the way people are going to pay money? Am I making banking obsolete totally as it is? Am I changing the way agriculture food is being delivered to a consumer? Am I changing the way, and this may impact you professors, the way assessment is done? Automating assessment. There are hundreds of ideas and you have to figure out how you want to do it. I'll tell you a simple example. It's more in the consumer space, so you can relate to it. We have funded a startup which is producing simple Kerala banana chips. That's it. It's made from Nendran Kerala bananas, and it is obviously made hygienically, sold on Amazon, and we funded it. So the idea for him is the founder wants to put this banana chips next to each and every packet of Lay's across the country. And he's so motivated we funded it and we hope it becomes successful. So chase a dream, and it's not a journey of income, journey of wealth, can start anytime.
Thank you, sir. Wealth, not income, and then chasing of a dream. Define what you're solving pretty clearly. The next question in this, sir, is what are the skills and behaviors needed for a success in a startup?
Attitude, you have to have an attitude of scaling. I think it's not easy. If you have, if you're a cricket lover, you'll say, are you a defensive batsman? Then it is not easy to be a startup founder. If you are an offensive batsman who likes to take the ball and swing it, you are meant to be a startup founder. So your attitude should be of really, really scaling. Perseverance is of course important, but more important, because of this COVID and the nature of issues, resilience has also become very, very critical. So all told, an attitude of rapidly scaling, taking huge risk, a tech background or tech co-founder usually helps, because you can quickly pivot if things are not working. You can come out with new products, and tech backbone of technology is a huge help today. Today, all businesses are tech businesses. You're only slapping services on top of it. It could be a banking service, insurance service, consumer product. Technology has become the backbone.
Thank you, sir. So that's a combination. And what a combination: taking risk, including technology as part of the way you build the product or deliver it, attitude, scaling, persistence, perseverance. The next question is about how do you evaluate, validate the ideas that you have? How do you understand basic needs? What is the opportunity, the field of business, the location, the investment needed? Does the age of the entrepreneur play any role? What is the role of business plan in this?
Sure, it's a loaded question, and it's probably a full day response, but I'll give a 2-minute response. At 100x, we fund early stage startups. Our firm name is 100x.vc. It's not a commercial for my firm, but I just thought I'll tell you because we are looking at the early stage. We have funded startups which are also at concept stage, but early revenues, pre-revenues as well. So what do you look at? Firstly, founders. Is there more than one founder? What are the complementary skills? Are they both, let's say, marketing experts? It doesn't work. One founder has to be of one domain, another for the other domain. Ideally, one founder should be of a tech domain. So first you look at the founders. Next, most important is the market size. Is it a massive market which can really scale the business? Or do you have, let's say, a scope of maximum 10 crores, 20 crores business? VCs are not interested. Can this become a 100 crore business, 200, 500 crores? Then VCs will take interest. So market size is important. What is the competition? And what is your unfair advantage or moat which you're following for the business? Yes, please go ahead, sorry.
The next question is about, is how do you move from idea to execution? What are the challenges for a startup? Where should the founder focus? How difficult is it for young entrepreneurs to select their core teams for their startups? And what are the strategies to make startups successful?
So let me quickly talk about idea to execution. At each stage, a startup founder requires different skills. At the first stage, ideation stage, you have to figure out what can possibly happen to this idea. How can this become a big idea? If it can't become big, don't go down the path of seeking funds and becoming a startup. Become an entrepreneur. There's nothing wrong. It's great. Have a business which gives you good returns, sustainable. Think of scale. Discuss the idea with your close friends, with some mentors like Professor Rao, Professor Prasad, or you can then do some small pilot as well. Do some research. Once you're clear about the idea, start building a product, invest some of your money, build an MVP product, then start marketing it, start seeking funds, get your idea validation. And once you have enough money to launch a product, or if you have put little enough money, then at each stage the skills required for a founder keep changing. Initially it's more about ideation, then it is about execution, and then it is about how to raise money. A startup founder cannot just be a narrow-minded one quality. All the qualities are required. How to grow a startup, I have mentioned a lot in my presentation. So I'll leave it at that at this point of time.
Thank you, sir. I think for the next cluster of questions, I'd hand the stage over to Professor Rao.
Thank you, sir. I'll talk about scaling some of the questions that are clustered under this bucket. Only half of the startups survive in the first 5 years, according to some studies, and only 1 in 200 become actual scale-ups. Even though, as you mentioned, India is a hub of startups, we don't see much of them at international level, like the big ones like Amazon or like McDonald's, etc. What is the reason? How can we overcome this, and what are the reasons?
So India takes the number 3 slot in terms of the number of startups every year. US is number 1, China number 2, India is number 3. So it's not such a bad number to be in. Of course, US has this whole Silicon Valley culture for a long time, and they're ahead. India is catching up. India is catching up very fast in terms of the way it's working. So, in India, the domestic market itself is so huge that startups focus on the domestic market because that itself is massive. And that's how startups have focused. But you will soon see, we are seeing massive number of kids wanting to build startup products for the global market. It's a matter of time. The next Google will be from India.
Great, sir. Great to know that, and great to hear that from you, actually. So moving on to my next question, what are the first signals of scale up, in the sense that how do we move up to scaling, and what are the stages, if any, for scaling up an entrepreneurial venture?
So when you start your business, month 1, let's say your sale is 1 lakh rupees. I'm just throwing a number. Month 2, if your sale is 1 lakh 20, month 3, your sale is 1 lakh 40, month 4, it is 1 lakh 80. It might be good. It might give you, decent, but it's not a startup. Month 1, 1 lakh, month 2, 2 lakhs, month 3, 4 lakhs. month for 8 lakhs. Is it growing? If it is not growing month on month, minimum 50 to 60%, you have to figure out what's happening. On a small base, it has to grow at that rate. If it's not growing, there's something wrong. You need to figure out.
Great, sir. What are the impediments which come in the way of scaling up of the idea, and what are the strategies that are required to scale up, both in terms of marketing, in terms of HR, that is the people, and what kind of team or how to form a team that is meant for scaling up of the business?
So there's a big laundry list of what are the problems which can happen in scaling up, but an intelligent founder will find a way around it. Today, to get a good team is not easy. It is one of the biggest challenges, but fortunately for you, all of you are connected on LinkedIn and so many social networks. You can find, it's not that you cannot find, you have to motivate them to join startup. Getting a team for a startup requires different mental mind engineering. It has to be engineered for working in a startup, which is very different from working in a large corporate group. Not easy, possible. You'll have to work hard towards it to get a team going.
Great. So you need a different mental makeup actually to get up for scaling. I'll also would like to seek your response to one question, that is there a lot of hype around these words, scale up and startups? Because only some get noticed for projects that reach far beyond oneself. How do we measure the impact of the venture?
So if one is looking at social impact, it's a very different story. These startup founders want to become unicorns. It's as simple as that. And that's their straight journey, narrow path they're following. That's the measure of success startup founders have. When do I become a unicorn? Now, as a society, we might have different measures. Startups do employ a lot of people. It's not that they do not. And they employ people in innovation. Traditionally, innovation has not happened as much in, as in the West. A lot of research and development innovation happened in the academics, in colleges. Traditionally, a lot of research has happened in government institutions in India. That has to change. And when that innovation research starts moving, and it has already moved to colleges, college students, academics, that's the big change which will happen. It's happening and it will happen soon.
Fantastic. The changing landscape of research, that when it moves towards students and research scholars in universities, then the whole ecosystem will actually shape up. Sir, in this cluster, one final question I have, that is, what are your views on sustaining the family business for the second generation?
So family business has a different concept. It is not a startup in a pure sense. You're running a business for you, your family, and for the next generation. So you're basically just a trustee going on to the next generation. Nothing wrong. Yes, you should do it. Remember, family business will become extinct if you do not embrace technology wholeheartedly, with your arms fully around it, not reluctantly and saying, no, this is just part in a corner in basement of our office. There's a small room where a tech person sits. It won't work. Technology has to be right up front in your, if you're running a family business, Monday morning you wake up, you have to figure out, will technology help me in growing my business? Will technology help me in improving my customer satisfaction? Every problem, you have to think of technology first solution. And this is not an overhype, this is reality.
Fantastic. Very, very useful, sir. Now I hand over this to Professor R. Prasad for the next cluster of questions.
Thank you, Professor Rao. This cluster is essentially on funding of startups. And we have seen that up till COVID, there was a rapid increase in the funding of startups. And then there was slight lull, and again, it's back to increase in funding. So the first question in this is, what stage of the startup should first-time founders go for funding?
So it depends, if you can bootstrap yourself for some time, do it. If you can't, and if you think you have a great idea, go straight for funding at very early stage itself. There are people willing to fund pre-revenue, early revenue. We are doing it. We have funded 50 startups so far at 100x. We have a model of funding as the first institutional investor using something we call ICF note. Have a look at our website. So we fund early stage. But yes, if you're beyond that, there are many other places you can go to. So what is the nature of a business? If you can just invest very limited money, just make it to an MVP stage, go for funding and seek funds to make it grow. If you can grow it much more and then go for funding, you can do later on as well. If you don't go for, see, remember, people, when they come for funding, I mentioned to you, they are looking at 20x returns. So your business should be able to give that return to a VC. It's not 20x over 2 years. VCs are willing to wait for 7 years to get that return. But yes, they're looking for that kind of return. Your business should be such which is capable of giving those kind of returns. So you can seek funding early, later, you can go for an IPO as well. You can do all kinds of things. But today, there's enough funds in the market for you to get funding. If you're not getting funding, your business is not VC fundable. It's not a bad business. It is not VC fundable. VC fundable business means VCs have in themselves thought that this business is not scalable and this business will not give me an exit of 20x. So that means the business is not VC fundable.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, how do you guide youngsters and startups to get the first stage of funding for a business venture? There was an associated question in the chat box that youngsters are finding it difficult to find mentors and also other sort of investors. So how do you guide youngsters in this, sir?
So mentors, two of the probably best mentors are right on my screen next to me. Professor Rao and Professor Prasad. You should bounce ideas to them at the initial stage. Obviously, they may not be able to spend as much time as you may want, but I'm sure you can bounce ideas initially with them, and then go. See, today getting a good mentor is never easy. You have to look around carefully. Who is the right mentor who brings value to you and who's able to spend time with you as a startup. Don't have a mentor who's not going to add value. Those days of having a mentor for the sake of putting the name of the mentor on the PPT are over. No VC is impressed by just the name on the PPT. The mentor has to be engaged in your business and find the right person who can do it. It is possible, it is difficult, but you can always find.
Thank you, sir. What are the factors apart from profits that investors look up in startups?
See, profits is one part. Is it what kind of market share you're going to get? What kind of consumer growth is possible? What kind of revenue growth is possible? Is it a product which has global scale? Is it a product which has national scale? Is it something which is disruptive? Is it something which is going to change the entire landscape? Is it a payment solution which is going to totally disrupt the entire banking payment problem? All these are very clear. Is it an IoT solution for solving agriculture problems? So all these disruptive ideas which are potential to scale is what VCs look at.
This is very interesting. As we go forward and forward, I think it's becoming more and more clear as to what a startup is and what investors are looking at, which otherwise, because of the news around, it's not very clear. The next question, sir, is how do startups optimally use funds from investors? Where should they deploy these funds and where they should not?
So before you get funds, you will show to the VC that this is how you're going to deploy it. And you have to deploy it as per that plan. If you're going to change that plan, you should, tell your investor, this is a change plan, and you have to get the VC support for the change plan. So typically, funds are used either to build technology or to acquire customers. And of course, some of them are used to acquire teams as well. So these are broad nature of usage of funds.
The next one in this cluster, sir, is what is the best and safest option for financing a startup? And what is the role of venture capital for startups? To what extent can they finance? How to find one? And how to source funds without diluting equity for a demanding business?
Well, this might be a controversial statement, and I don't know if Professor Rao and Prasad has a different point of view. Equity funding is the most expensive funding you will get. So, whenever you're diluting equity, remember, if there's other method you think which funding available to you, do that. If you think you want to go by the equity route, there's enough and more funding available. Where? Open your eyes, see on the internet. There's so many. My firm is there. There are so many other firms funding. There's no problem. There's no shortage of funds. There are government grants, Karnataka government, Andhra government, Maharashtra government. There's so many, Kerala government, so many things happening. There's no shortage. You have to figure out how to do it. So there's no shortage of people funding. Doesn't mean that you'll get funds easily. An average person, founder, takes 65 meetings. That is a global average before he or she gets funded. So if you think you're going to I have the best product in the world, I pitch to Professor Rao, who's a VC, and he's going to fund. No, he may say no. You have to keep going on and on and on. When I say average 65, you might have to meet 100 people also. So that's the average 65 meetings you have to take. That's the average. So it requires perseverance before which you get funded. But you will, if you have a good idea, if you've thought of it on a scale, you will get funded. Certainly you'll get funded.
Thank you, sir. 65 meetings. That really calls for a lot of persistence. I hope the audience is listening in. The next question is, sir, how long does it take for startups to make profits?
So this depends on the industry you're in. Some industries you can become profitable from the first year itself. Some can be year 2, year 3, or some can take 5 years, 7 years. Amazon took, I think, 20 years plus years to become profitable. And doesn't mean you won't get funded if you're not making profits. As long as you're showing momentum growth, as long as you're showing scale, you will get funding.
Yes, so it is momentum and growth. It is not necessarily the time that you take to make profits, which is relevant. Thank you, sir. I think the last question in this cluster is related to which are the areas where government seems to be providing concessions and benefits, funding of different sort. Are there any priority areas? Is there something to do with the environment? Is it something to do with the area? That's the question.
So each state government has their own startup model. You can go to whichever state you are. Each of them has a model. You can figure out there are grants. There are Maharashtra government, where I'm based in Bombay. There's a startup week, and the winners get orders from Maharashtra state. So each government has its own. There is the center. Niti Aayog is running a Atal Incubation Center program. There are Atal Incubation Centers across the country. You can go to the incubation center, get space at a low price. So you can find out all this. There is no particular specific sector. Of course, when COVID hit us, government had some incentives on COVID, but this keeps changing.
So keep one's eyes on the local state government policy as well as the center policies, and become aware of a lot of information available on the net itself. Thank you, sir. I think we go to the next cluster, and I hand it back to Professor Rao.
Yeah, thank you. Sir, I will now focus on the trends actually on startups. So what are the new trends in business and markets where startups are scaling up, are likely to succeed? Will the edtech startups in India be able to scale up, or will they go back to, or will they fizzle out once we go back to our physical classrooms? Which startups in education field, according to you, have made an impact?
Well, India has the glorious distinction of the highest valued edtech startup in the world. And sometimes we don't realize in our backyard, we have the most valued edtech startup in the world. And that's an indication of the fact that in the education sector in India was ripe for a lot of innovation. So my belief is, and Professor Rao and Professor Prasad, you are best to comment on it, is we will eventually have a hybrid model once things are normal. It will not go back. I think COVID is certainly something which has devastated a lot of families, and we do hope we do not get such a pandemic again. But what it has taught the education sector is embracing technology. Uh, Traditionally, BFSI sector always embraced technology with open arms across the world, not just in India. But education was never in the top category of sectors which embrace technology. Now it had no choice but to embrace. The long-term impact of such deep engagement of technology in education is huge. It will lead to a lot more education across India. It will lead to a lot more quality education as well as quantity of education. And the future of edtech, yes, we will have a lot of edtechs in India precisely because our education sector in India, the depth and breadth of the problem, no country in the world has in terms of the kind of problems we have, languages, the kind of boards we have, the kind of issues we have, no other country has. So if we as a country, we have so many problems connected to education to be resolved, it will lead to more startups. It will lead to more education.
Great. So guys are focusing on edtech startups, keep focusing on that. There's a huge market and an opportunity out there. So I move to the second question. In this pandemic, in which way are the startups affected? What are some of the profitable startups during the lockdown? And how is the market for AI in India, artificial intelligence?
So AI is a horizontal technology. So, you can apply it specifically to various parts of whatever you want. So just as an example, we have funded an AI company which in the video cameras, it applies AI to figure out if people are complying with standards. There's an AI company which has auto grading, not just for multiple choice, but even for lengthy answers. So AI as a horizontal technology has application across healthcare, across education, across all industries. Future is fantastic. AI will lead to a lot of innovation. So yes, whichever sector you're in, you have to look at AI not as a vertical but a horizontal technology and how to apply it.
Great, sir. So AI is a horizontal technology and there's a great opportunity for that as well. So why is there a lack of disruptive innovation ideas in startups from India? And what can be done to overcome this lacunae?
You will see it soon, my friend. You will see it. It's all in pipeline. It's coming up. This whole aspect of going for startups we've started later than US and China, but we will catch up.
Great. That's a very optimistic note from the person who is very much deeply entrenched into nurturing the startups. So the next question is, we see that most of the startups end up selling their businesses to large business houses. Is this a healthy trend?
That's not true. Most don't sell. Yes, there are people who sell, but there are a lot of people who go on their own. Zomato is doing an IPO. It's not selling on. And it's a landmark IPO they're doing. Yes, there are some who sell out. It's not necessary that all companies sell out. Let me, coming to the earlier question of AI and disruptive, we have just funded a company called Vitra, VITRA, Vitra.ai. These boys worked for 2 years on AI technology, and finally, it's the first time in the world this is a technology where a video which can get translated to 51 languages in 5 minutes. You don't have to go to a dubbing studio. How about that for disruption? I can give many more examples, but I just thought I must push this point and emphasize this point that disruption is happening. All these stories will come up to the surface very soon when they become large companies.
That's great. So that's really, really interesting. The example that you have given about the disruptive ideas that are there, and it will take some more time or a little more time to actually be seen and be visible for all of us. I will come to you, sir, definitely at 100x with at least a dozen of the startups where you can help them. And I'm getting messages while the discussion is going on. Ladies and gentlemen, the discussion is not over. My next question is, there is a huge skill shortage in India from where one can get proper training before starting his or her own business.
Do a startup to solve this problem. There you are. You've told me a problem. Solve the problem.
Great. Great. That's a nice response. Thank you very much. Each and every response is very, very optimistic, and it is leading to some kind of new ideas or new venture in itself. So one question I have, how can women in rural areas with very little resources or financial help and a lot of impediments that we see in terms of social hindrances, how do they realize their dreams of having a startup?
Not easy. Not easy. Can give kind of vague answers, but certainly not easy. I think it's women particularly, but even boys in rural areas, not easy. But the beauty today is, 30, 40 years back in India, you couldn't start a business unless you came from a family of means. Today, it is possible to start a startup without anything in your pocket. And we have funded such people. We have funded such young girls and boys. So yes, you have to have the dream. You have to have an idea of how to do it. I think it will happen when more and more incubators go to rural areas, more and more courses on entrepreneurship are taught in rural areas, the concept of entrepreneurship, and more success stories of rural area girls are shown to more and more girls. There are success stories. They have to be more broadcasted.
Yes, sir. There are success stories, and I have also personally experienced. There is one foundation called the Awesome Foundation, which focuses on women entrepreneurs only, and that too, the discovery of fortitude at the bottom of the pyramid I'm seeing, and your response is an endorsement to that kind of new trend. Thank you very much, sir. Now I hand over to Professor R. Prasad for the last bucket of questions that he has. Professor Prasad.
Thank you, Professor Rao, and thanks a lot, sir. I think the last section, the last cluster has really opened up the hope and the opportunities that we can see. And one of the things that is needed when all this happens is how does education, training, and higher education institution, how do they support this? So the question, I'll combine the questions here as we have already overshot our time. The first is what kind of support can universities provide to students who want to convert their idea to startup? And even before that, how do we promote the spirit of private and social entrepreneurship amongst students, particularly in B schools?
Educational institutions and B schools have a stellar role to play. That is a laboratory where ideas are formed. In the Western countries, in US, which is #1 in startup, that is exactly the place where startups get conceived, professors help nurture them, and the entire ecosystem supports them. So everything has to start in the educational institution. You have to have professors who support, you have to have courses taught to students, you have to have incubation centers, you have to have people who are successful come and share their success stories from that college ideally, if not other colleges. That entire ecosystem has to start there. The more it happens in educational institution, the more startups will get.
Thanks a lot, sir. That kind of sums up most of the questions that we have. And here I'd like to add that in the as far as higher education is concerned, the program that we are looking at, the fully online MBA program, the essential opportunity we are looking at is that every person has a aspiration, every learner has an aspiration. How do you pivot this MBA program, its content, its delivery, its pedagogy, so that you can serve as aspiration? This is what we are trying to do. It's a tough journey, but then this is where our sights are. Thanks a lot, sir. And I'd now hand it back to Professor Rao.
Professor Prasad, I have one question to you, not just on the 3 decades of your work life, but in the context of the answers that you have sought. I have one question back to you. That is, in the online MBA program that you have designed recently, how are you going to take care of ideations, business ventures, startups, or you are very busy in conducting your own classes? Is there any effort earmarked for strengthening startups in your program?
I think that's a wonderful question that you posed to us. I think the first thing that we try to do is at the selection stage. So when you meet a person, even if you're spending 5 minutes, 20 minutes with him, you should be able to understand what his aspiration is. And if you're able to very broadly, maybe the person is not very specific, but they've got some dreams in their mind, they've got some energy which drives their passion. So the first thing is you need to identify that. If you pivot yourself around that, when you come to how you deliver and how you personalize your learning, personalize is not an easy job, but today technology is there to support you. If you're able to personalize that with the content, because concepts are not very different, but the lens of opportunity that you place on the concept with respect to the aspiration can be very different. So you can make it very exciting for every learner. And this is what we are trying to do. And that all culminates in an entrepreneurship practicum in the second year. So right from the first year, they should start looking at each conceptual framework with the lens of a startup or an entrepreneurship, or if not innovation, because primarily they may get employed in an organization which is also looking at innovation. Today, organizations are looking at people who can, the young blood which can change things, because without that, they can't capture market share. I think whether it is placement or whether it is startup, the lens that you put in front of your curriculum and which is useful for content, design, delivery, all these need to change, and they have to relate to the aspiration of the student. I think that's how I would put it in short.
Great. Thank you very much for that response. Now I will go to Mr. Ninad Karpe and I'll ask him one question. This is the last question, sir. There are tons and tons of questions, but we have more or less covered the canvas. The question to you is, tell us very briefly, what is this Baba to Bond?
Yeah, so thank you, Professor Rao, and thank you for inviting me, Professor Rao and Prasad, for this session. I'm happy to share my thoughts. So Professor Rao and Prasad, if any of your viewers want to send a pitch deck to 100x, please do send at pitch, P-I-T-C-H, at 100x.vc. That's the address where we get. And of course, you know, I'm on LinkedIn. You can always get in touch if you want to get in touch. But more importantly, Bond to Baba is the name of my strategy book. It covers business strategy. I took 7 years to write 120 pages. My younger son says, Dad, that's a very poor record of writing, to take 7 years and write only 120 pages. But fortunately, it has received good response. So the first chapter, Professor Rao, is on how James Bond character was reinvented in Skyfall and became a success. Then I've spoken about Formula One. Then I've spoken about Alexander. I have read mostly all the books on the strategies of war of Alexander, but I've taken only one war, which was at Gaugamela, how Alexander won, and that I've covered in very, very succinct form. And I've covered various strategies, and the last strategy is on how Ramdev Baba is successful in marketing. So first chapter is Bond, last is Baba. That's why it's Bond to Baba. It's there on Amazon.
Great, sir. Thank you very much. That's a very interesting caption to raise curiosity for your own book and thereby your ideas that you have shared in the book. I could not have asked for more. You have made my day. These are the kind of responses that we are receiving on my inbox even now. And I would like to exactly put the same thing. Sir, thank you very much. You have made my day. I couldn't have asked for more. From the bottom of my heart, I would like to thank you on behalf of ICFAI Group for sparing this time to speak to our audience, speak to us, and answer all these questions in a manner that has given several insights into the landscape of startups. And it is going to be extremely useful. As I said earlier, I'm going to come back to you with at least a dozen startups with lots of optimism in their eyes and spring in their step towards 100x. And also in general, some ideas and some suggestions and advice to be sought from you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for patiently listening to this webinar today on Friday evening. We have actually shot our time, overshot it by at least 20-25 minutes, and must thank you for listening to us. And the topic is such, the speaker is such, it is so engrossing and learning, and it has created fundamental basics for us to understand what is startups and how do we go about it in terms of scaling right from ideation. So it is very interesting, sir. Your videos are very cute and very interesting and short and crisp. We have a lot to learn from these things as well, apart from the subject that we are talking about. You conducted the session extremely well. And to you and to everyone, I request you to take care. The pandemic is not over. Stay safe, stay home, and we all should be able to do a very good job in the days to come. And we should be very, very optimistic, as the guest speaker has told us today. Once again, I thank you all for joining us. See you next week on Friday with yet another interesting guest. We are going to have Mr. Sridhar Ramanujam. He is going to talk about the world of brands at 5 p.m. next Friday. And he is a distinguished alumnus of Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. And he has been throughout in his career with cricket and brands. So it's going to be an interesting session again. I'll invite you, and please watch out for ICFAI online updates. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for spending this valuable time with us. We are forever indebted to you. Thank you all once again.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Professor Rao. Thank you, Professor Prasad.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.